Hi everyone. So welcome back to the Upsurge is a webinar series which is in economics and decision sciences in order to talk about the redefining in Sri Lankan economy. The main motive is to uplift and redefine the Sri Lankan economy. So that's why SCEDS has initiated this. So before moving on the topic for the day, I would like to make this an opportunity to introduce y'all the guest speaker for the day. He is the Chief Financial Officer of Commercial Bank of Ceylon PLC since January 2008. He has over 30 years experience in audit and assurance, telecommunication and banking industry. He is the current president of the National Chamber of Commerce of Sri Lanka, chairman of the member network panel of Association of Chartered Certified Accountants Sri Lanka, and the president of the Chartered Institute for Securities and Investment, Sri Lanka National Advisory Council. He is also a member of the Governing Council of National Institute of Business Management, external faculty board member of the Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce of University of Sri Jayawardenepura, member of the Corporate Advisory Board of the Sri Lanka Finance Association, member of the Advisory Council of Colombo School of Business Management, and a member of the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants Global Forum of Education. He is a fellow member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants and Chartered Institute of Management Accountants Sri Lanka, the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants UK, Certified Management Accountant Australia, Senior Associate of Financial Services Institute Australia, and a member of the Chartered Institute for Securities and Investment UK, the Institute of Management Accountants USA. He holds Bachelor of Science and Postgraduate Diploma in Management from University of Sri Jayawardenepura, Master of Business Administration degree, Master's degree in Financial Economics, and Master of Science in Financial Mathematics from University of Colombo. He is also a life member of Sri Lanka Economic Association and Sri Lanka Finance Association. He is also a member of the American Economic Association, Royal Economic Society, American Finance Association, Accounting and Finance Association of Australia and New Zealand, and American Accounting Association. So we would warmly welcome our guest speaker for the day, Mr. Nandika Buddhipala, the Chief Financial Officer of Commercial Bank of Ceylon PLC, to the Chapter 3 of Upsurge. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Before me moving on with the discussion, I would like to introduce y'all the topic for the day. So today we are going to discuss about foreign trade, exchange rates, and Sri Lankan economy. So please feel free, if you have any further clarifications to be made, you can use the chat box and direct your questions to us during this period of time. So I hope that you would make this a good learning opportunity for all of you. Thank you. Sir, over to you.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure for me to be with you. I'm just trying to get into my slides. And today, it's a bit of a big topic, to tell you the truth, when it comes to discussion in trade and other areas. What I'm trying to do today is not really get into maybe a lot of statistics. I can get into it a bit later. What I'm trying to do today is maybe try to introduce you to maybe two concepts, which are extremely important as we speak. And specifically, second concept, namely those two are going to be small open economy. In the kind of open small economy, how the trade, exchange rates, and specifically international trade, how those are going to evolve, and how it is going to be important for us to have a glimpse or an idea what we call as a small open economy. I'll just have a brief introduction to what we call as small open economy. then I will look into another concept, what we call as dominant currency paradigm. This paradigm is recently evolved, maybe starting from 2015, like a bit more before than that. So how dominant currencies are going to have huge amount of influence on the inflation, policy rate, interest rate, growth, so many channels of influence. And what is known as dominant currency, how those are going to have impact on the emerging markets. So those are the two aspects I'm going to look at. Then, as usual, we can get into a lot of statistics, and we can talk about maybe global concepts, like specifically a global aspect of emerging markets and developing markets, and how the global economy markets and emerging and developing markets, how they are going to be different from the developed markets. What kind of interaction that we can see in the very recent statistics and the concepts. Then finally, we move into the Sri Lankan economy. So very briefly, that's what I'm going to discuss. So I'll just start with what we call as, what is known as small open economy. So here you can see very brief description of small open economy. So it says, when the economy is so small, even though they are engaged in the foreign trade, they can't change world prices, interest rates, or incomes. There are a lot of definitions around this, and those definitions vary one to another. People talk about the number of population and certain other the parameters to determine whether the economy is a small economy or big economy. Now, when we look at population, it is going to be maybe 3 or 4 countries. One is India, China, India, and US. Those are the bigger populated, the huge population, the economies with the big population, more than maybe 300 million. So what happens here is that even we are aware of the fact that when the US economy is going to have certain disruptions, the small economies will have serious issues emanating from that. But when you look at maybe a small economy like Norway, even though they are rich enough, but still, since their GDP is not huge, as well as their linkages to the other economies. Their linkages to other economies also is a bit of the smaller economies. There are no issues with like even though the small economies get into issues, we don't have serious issues coming from that. Okay, we'll just move into the other area. Now, small economy is dependent on the population size, GDP per capita, trade openness to identify other economies. So now, small open economies assumed to be too small to influence the level of world output or the world interest rates with the conditions in the rest of the world taken as given. Like when you look at it, maybe taken together, even few of small economies even together cannot influence certain parameters like the world output, the world interest rate, and there again the other kind of conditions. Now, then conventionally we look at it like the typically small open economy is measured through maybe according to their GDP levels, population, or labor force size, or land area, one or the other. So there are different kind of definitions for it. I've taken it from Small Advanced Open Economies kind of paper published somewhere in October 2018. You can see there how they are going to filter maybe according to the GDP per capita or population or openness of the economy. Now, according to that, we can find these are all open, the small open economies, but they term these as advanced economies. So we can see the population running into 5 to 10 to 17 billion, but all are advanced kind of economies. And the most important thing is this particular parameter here. Export as a percentage of GDP, trade as a percent of GDP. Now, when you look at Luxembourg, Singapore, and Ireland, there you can see their interaction with the trade is very, very high. The import-export taken together, even running down to even Austria, Denmark, Switzerland, Netherlands, Belgium, even those countries, but you can see their trade as a percent of GDP is running into more than 100%. Their exports are running into, when we look at Luxembourg, Singapore, and Ireland, those are running into more than 100%. Meaning they have big capacity, even though they are small, since they are involved in trade pretty much. So they have the better prospects for them to grow their per capita income. So the other ones are going to be like Finland, Norway, Israel, New Zealand. There are a lot of other countries also. Those are also somewhat small but advanced open economies. So there again, you can see there are even some of the smaller countries like Malta, export as a percentage of GDP is running to more than 100%. Then there are, because maybe not only because of that, but even that kind of circumstances, you can see their per capita income is running to about 26,000. So I'm not going to compare with Sri Lanka. You know what we have here. We have 3,600, less than 4,000 per capita income, while our trade is running into maybe 10 to 15% of the GDP, even less than that. So I have taken very simple snapshot of these from Professor Penny Goldberg, and she appeared very recently on what you call as International Economic Association sessions. That started from maybe 2nd to 6th of July, very recent. She came up with very, very, very simplistic framework. I've just taken, I really, unfortunately, I couldn't get hold of her slides. They're also not available. But after listening, I just jot down certain points and I just prepared, and I've removed a lot of what you call technical things. This is a kind of a technical session that she did, but she did in a very, very simple manner. So I'm just trying to run it through with you for you to use some kind of a glimpse of what we call as what we call as small open economy. So what she says is trade is essential for the development of small economies. And it's quite interestingly, the threshold, when you look at the population, what I said was earlier, the one parameter going to be population, size of population, for you to define any economy as a small or bigger. Now, she goes up to the level of 300 million. Why she goes up to that level? She says, if the market is not open, you can propel maybe you can go up to a level of very, very sound growth, maybe sustainable growth as well. But for you to have it, you need to have a population running into 300 million. Otherwise, it is going to be difficult for you to isolate yourself without doing any trade with the other open markets. Then it's going to be difficult for you to have a significant growth. Simple as such. What we need to keep in mind when we are listening to these kind of deliberations, that all these discussions, she's not saying for the sake of saying. At least you have put down the data, maybe about 100, maybe 200 countries, and running into maybe about 100 years of data. And then there again, they do a lot of research. Mathematical, quantitative type of research as well. So after coming on those kind of research, I'm not going to discuss those. I mean, what kind of my mathematics knowledge is not enough for me to discuss even. But there again, it's going to be complicated. So I have taken very simple snapshot. Then what she says is, in the absence of trade, a certain degree of equality is crucial. Still, you have some problems in listening. Can you hear me properly?
We can hear you, sir.
Okay, fine. That's good. In the absence of trade, a certain degree of equality is crucial for growth. That will increase effective market size. There again, the income disparity is very widely discussed in the last 10-15 years. There are so many literature, so many books written about it as well. And it has become a serious problem. So when the income inequality is there, then a huge amount of population will be under poverty level. When the huge amount of population is going to be under the poverty level, there will be less amount of growth prospects. The people don't have money to eat even. So then their consumption levels will drastically go down, and only a handful of the big people will have the money, but they will just discuss what they will do. In the absence of global trade, deep integration under regional umbrella could increase effective market size. What she says is, when we have inequality and those kind of issues, specifically in the absence of global trade, then you need to at least integrate with your regional countries, at least that. But that is also trade anyway. So what she says is three sectors in a kind of economy: agriculture, or in any economy, agriculture, manufacturing, and specifically open economy, cash crops. Normally under open economy, small open economies, they don't have that much of manufacturing. So what they have is export of cash crops, or minerals, or oil. But they do huge amount of food imports. Normally under normal circumstances, services not in the model. But even countries like ours and Singapore, we can see there are services as well in some of these economies. So these are most of these things we are aware of, and we know. There are two technologies in manufacturing. One is traditional construction, constant return to scale. Another one is increasing return to scale. What she says is, for us to, as an economy, to any economy to develop, you need to move away from you need to get into industrialization. The transition is going to be from the CRS, that is constant return to scale, from that to increasing return to scale. When you move to that only, you will be able to get into a development path. And we'll just move in now. Adoption of increased return to scale is linked to development. The new technology, normally, as we are aware, when we find a new technology, then that's going to improve our productivity levels. But for that, what unfortunate thing is, you cannot really adapt as and when you want new technology or IRS, increasing returns to scale, because you need some fixed cost. You need to invest in it. For you to invest in, sometimes when you are a small economy, you don't have money. So those are the kind of issues. Then what she says is threshold market size can be achieved using domestic or international market. So for you to maybe move into this kind of advance, the increasing the rate of the scale of return, then you need to have domestic market expanding, or otherwise the international trade, one or the other, maybe the both. In domestic market, you need to have middle class. If you don't have a middle class, because of their consumption pattern, that gives you some kind of impact where you can improve your productivity levels. Middle class is the number of customers in the subsistence level, meaning if the subsistence level is Z, then you need to have some people over and above that to reach into middle class. Then what she goes on to say is consumers with income less than that level, meaning the poor people, they will only just buy food. The middle class first, then they will buy food, but then they move into industrialized goods. Industrialized goods are produced by increasing return to the rate of return to scale, meaning using pretty much kind of new technologies, and those are very, very big amount of manufacturing. Like, for example, even a motor vehicle, when you look at maybe, say, for example, Volkswagen, maybe it can be Passat. For example, Passat is produced in big volumes. When they use that technology, and then the middle class people can buy those vehicles. I'm just using that because they have so many brands. Then when we come to Audi, then the production is less automated, but less amount of quantities. Then they have the Lamborghini, those kind of ones. They are not really going into that kind of very big production as such. Then what the upper class buy food, industrial goods, and luxury goods produced by the traditional technology. Why they call traditional technology? Because it's not going to be producing big, say, for example, Bugatti or that kind of a brand. Those are very, very small number of vehicles that they produce, and they don't use those kind of massive kind of scale of production. That's what they say. So when you have those two without having the middle class, then there will be a serious problem, because this IRS technology development is not going to take place. That's where she's coming from. So then what she further says is that this Banerjee and Duflo is these two, the wife and husband, these two professors were the people who won the Nobel Prize for economics last year before. Just I listened to him recently also. What they also talk about a similar kind of topic, so many things. And what the Penny professor is trying to say here is middle class is important because of the purchasing power, their purchasing power. And even the consumption pattern is also important to my knowledge. Then why they are important? I've just mentioned earlier also. I'm not going to touch very much, just in the interest of time. I've just taken so many minutes of your time. Then, when the economy is too poor, what is going to happen? Wealth boost. You need to boost wealth, because that amount of investment need to take place for you to develop. Then the agriculture as a lending sector, we need to improve agriculture productivity, and then we need to improve agriculture-based production and the output coming from there. Then the important one is going to be this can be achieved even through export of cash crops like what we do with tea, coconut, rubber. Those are the things we earlier at our initial stages, what we did in trade. Those were the prominent ones. They are only after only the manufacturing of the garments came into picture. So likewise, when the economy is too unequal, meaning when there's huge amount of income disparity, then wealth is held with only few number of people. Then what will happen? The middle class is not sufficiently large. Then their consumption is not going to be there. Then that will have huge impact because the industrial production, industrialization, and the development is not going to take place. Now the issue is this can be mitigated if you have free trade. Then the market size is determined by the size of the international market. Trade makes up for the smallness of the domestic market. Specifically, when the market is small, and even it is so drastic if you have the issue of income disparity also. When you have the both even without even income disparity, it's somewhat not in a bad shape, Phillips curve, but there again, the free trade is going to be important for us. That's why it is important. Then initial boost, wealth effect, increase the agriculture productivity, then export of cash crops that I just mentioned. And then the large enough market, you need to have it. In the absence of trade, this market is domestic. If the market is domestic, then at least you need to have some amount of liquidity or the middle class for you to propel into the next stage. Simply, that's what she's saying. Then initial wealth effect, the effect boost through exports, the traditional process of comparative advantage, you need to get into exports. That's what she's trying to say here. Then when you get into exports, what will happen? It is going to lower your fixed cost because you will have huge amount of production coming through. The increased market size in an open economy is going to be extremely important. Then what is the role of the domestic versus international market size development? And I will have maybe one or two the idea about it. In the interest of time, some of the things I will skip, but those are very, very simply elaborated here. The estimated threshold market size, I just mentioned earlier also. In the absence of I'm just trying to emphasize, in the absence of your openness to the market, if you do not do any import-export, and you are very much domestically oriented economy, for you to have a significant amount of growth, you need to have significant amount of big market. I think only, according to her understanding, I think only 3 economies, maybe India, China, and US are the only economies who can propel only domestic, with the domestic consumption and domestic demand without doing any trade. So that's what she just mentioned here. I will, I think, skip into maybe other ones. The other important one is the market. When you do trade with any other market, with what kind of market you should do trade? Doing trade with very small economy compared to yours may not be helpful. That's the other one that she's trying to say here. But she mentioned here in a very simple manner. I'm just trying to get the idea. Give the idea, like she has taken Afghanistan as the example, 35 million people population. So Afghanistan, if they are going to do business with Iran, where Iran population may be 2.3 times more, when you look at only the population, if you use the parameter as the population, then what will happen? You will have maybe more the 360,000 equivalent of more population of Pakistan, maybe another 1 billion kind of advantage population equivalent in addition to your population that you're going to get. But if you put it into relative the income per capita, you are moving into maybe 200 million or 60 million more than the population what you have. Meaning, this is kind of a mathematical calculation. I'm not going to explain the entire mathematical calculation. What she's trying to say here is, very simply, you need to do your trade with another country which has much bigger per capita income. Then you are going to be much more prosperous. So, meaning we do like that, but our issue is we don't have maybe 10-15% of our exports going into other as a percentage of GDP. That's our issue. Whereas Singapore and other countries are having 200-300% of maybe 150-200% of exports compared to their GDP. So this is where she says the threshold market size 328 million people below global middle class, whatever. So for you to propel without doing anything with the other markets, you need to have a huge kind of the domestic market, which of course we don't have. We have only 22 million people. That's why she says international trade is important. Market size is the channel that we need to think of. So in the interest of time, I will leave maybe one or two of these slides, but I will share it with you. You can just glance through it. This is very simple. No mathematical calculation have been included here. But all these the conclusions she came up with always using huge amount of database and huge amount of the mathematical calculations. There again, she mentioned about you need to have more than 300 million people if you are trying to. If you don't have trade, size of the domestic market can compensate for lack of trade, but the issue is the estimate suggests that domestic market needs to be very large, about 300 million for domestic IRS to increasing the return to the scale to kick in. Because increase the technology, if this doesn't work, development is going to be a problem. For technology to come into play, you need to have that kind of huge market, unless otherwise you don't do trade. So that's why I just started with the trade. That's why I said trade is important. So this is not only a theoretical, I don't think since she's a professor from universities in the world, but they do a huge amount of research. There again, this is the most recent one which I've seen a couple of days back only. She spoke in this particular, she did this particular presentation, 2nd or 3rd of July. Today, I think about 16th or something. Now, other one is I'm going to look at, I very briefly I will tell about it. Other one is McKinsey. McKinsey came up with one research very recently. That was about maybe 2-3 months ago. What they say here is they have taken so many things. I'm not going to take only 2 slides out of it. Otherwise, I don't have time. Now, what they say is this household is one of the very important elements. Normally, under normal the economics language, you use channel. Normally, US economists, normally they use channel, meaning if there is something which is coming from the filtering into spillover effect to other areas, then they call it a channel impact. Now, the McKinsey's, they use pathways. But whatever it is, what they say here is, when you look at Germany, Japan, United States, and so many other economies also they have taken, what they say is households are going to be extremely important. Not only them, I mean, any economics say households are going to be extremely important for us to develop. So what they say, last 20-25 years, when it comes to 2018 compared to maybe 20 years before, wages and salaries, contribution to social insurance, that is taxes, capital income. Just say, for example, wages and salaries by big corporates and the capital income. Only the wages and salaries, 20 in Germany, top 10% of the population get 28%. Bottom 50% get 22%. Capital also like that. Capital also very, very minimal when it comes to distribution. And Japan and United States, throughout the world, we have seen this particular incident. That particular incident is that even the bigger firms in a country, they do a lot of economic contribution to the country. Even though they do a lot, what happened in the about over a period of 25 years, I'm very briefly talking about it, due to the automation and the technological development, households are not going to get this money. So even the economy can be developed, income disparity is going to be a serious issue. The Phillips curve and the other kind of parameters are coming and hitting the economy. So this is where it is important for us to have this middle class and income distribution and some amount of equity to take place. So I think these are not only in economics, even other areas like management and other areas also people started discussing. Those are extremely important concepts that we need to know. At least we need to have some kind of an idea. So I'll just stop from that much as these are very big concepts and very mathematically driven. But I have just given some small idea to you that is going to be enough. But whenever you look at certain issues, now we are trying to be very close economy. But the close economy is not only us throughout the world. Due to pandemic, they are trying to control certain things. But one thing is very, very important for us, very small economy like ours. Without international trade, there is no way for us to move from the current status of the economy to move forward. That's what I'm trying to say. That's why trade is important. Now, moving into the other area, I just listened to her somewhere in 2017. That time she was not the chief economist of IMF. Later on, she became chief economist of IMF. I think I listened to her somewhere in 2017 in Bristol, Royal Economic Society annual sessions. The deliberations were extremely radical. I really wondered how she can express these kind of views. She talks about US dollar as a dominant currency, what she talks about. Now, what she says here is specifically a 1% US dollar appreciation against all other currencies in the world predicts a 0.6 to 0.8% decline within a year in the volume of total trade between countries in the rest of the world. So, appreciation of the US dollar by 1% will have huge impact on the trade volumes. But the important element is this: the trade volumes have huge impact on the world growth. This is what she says about it as well. I've just taken it from the Moody's bit old 2018. But what they say is slowing global trade will have an adverse impact on open economies, including Japan, Korea, and they say we expect the global growth to slow down to 3%, and a lot of statistics are there. What I'm trying to say here is currency depreciation or currency appreciation. It talks about appreciation of US dollar. Appreciation of US dollar will have 1% appreciation, will have 0.6 to 0.8% decline in the trade. The trade will have huge impact on the economic growth of the world. Why? They talk a lot of channels. I'm not going to, these are very, very, very mathematical. But I'm not going to talk about those mathematical things, but I'm just using her. Fortunately, I was able to get hold of the very simple description. I'm just trying to go on that. What she's trying to say here is somewhere in 2017, I suppose, only a speech. How does exchange rate fluctuations impact inflation and trade? How does monetary policy in US transmit to the rest of the world? Meaning, sometimes US, the monetary policy is so dominant. Even so, we feel that our monetary policy can control so many things. Unfortunately, no. The world economy can be controlled through sometimes the US monetary policy. That's what she is trying to say here. What exchange rate policy should the emerging market central banks adopt? I think these are the questions that normally you used to ask. So that's why I've taken these. Why does the dollar have such a special role in financial markets? So these are the questions that I'm going to just very simply glance through with you. I'm not going to use any mathematical jargon. I'm just going to use her speech, which she has given there. What she says here is, when currency depreciates and the loses value relative to its trading partner, meaning what we normally think is that when our currency say for example, like our Sri Lankan rupee depreciates, then the people who export can get a lot of money because of that. Exports will propel and reduce imports, because when you import, we need to pay a lot because our currency got depreciated. And then the inflation also will rise. This is what we call as MFP, Mundell-Fleming paradigm. This Mundell-Fleming paradigm was developed, I think, Robert Mundell Prize winner. And parallelly, interestingly, Professor Fleming also did a similar thing. So that's why it is called as Mundell and Fleming paradigm. Otherwise, this is basically producer currency pricing. Meaning, this is under the premise or under the assumption that we invoice, when we go to the international trade, we invoice in the currency which is produced. Say, for example, we produce something, tea. We produce tea and we export it. What is the invoice, the currency? Rupees. Under that premise, only sometimes this is going to work. But unfortunate thing is that sorry to disturb. Can you hear properly? Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, good. But I'm sweating because I just stopped my AC and I can't. And because of the hum and the noise. But that's okay. The now interesting thing, this particular previous paradigm, what Gita is trying to say is that this paradigm is not correct. Why? The people who produce, when they go to the invoicing, they invoice in some other currency. Look at the United States, forget about the United States because they do always in dollars. Now, Italy, even though they use euro, only 58% of imports invoice in their currency, exports 61. Likewise, in Germany, 50, and it goes down. When it comes to bigger economies like India, 0. Even now, I don't think that they invoice in Indian rupees. They do it in dollars. So that's the issue. This is another slide which I've taken from, I think, the Dagi's, one of Dagi's presentations. Dagi was the European, the central bank, chief of the governor of the European Central Bank, and he recently retired from there. And but interestingly, he became the Prime Minister of Italy now. But whatever it is, this particular slide, I don't know, I can't remember where I picked, but I'm very sure that I picked it from one of the speeches of Draghi when he was the European Central Bank governor. Look at it. This gives you entire perspective. US dollar continues to be the important today as it was during the Bretton Woods. Okay, Bretton Woods 48. Now, what happens? World trade, US has only 10% world market. When you look at the entire trade in the world, if it is 100, they have only 10%. In the US share of the global economy, the global GDP, they have only 15%. But look at the other things. US dollar share of the global market, if all the currencies are pegged to dollar, including Sri Lankan rupees. So not all, but 1/3 of the world countries, their currencies pegged to dollar. Even though they are only 15% of the world market, they are only 10% of the world trade. Unfortunate thing is that 1/3 of the currencies are pegged to dollar. In the global trade invoices, 50% of the global trade, they are having only 15% of the market share, but 50% of the global trade invoice in dollars. Then emerging market external debt, including others, 2/3. Then the reserves, 2/3 of the world economies, the reserves are denominated in dollars. Then the global securities, the issuance, like say, for example, we also issue global type of the ISPs, and we know that we have certain issues there. The sovereign bonds, 2/3 of those kind of instruments are issued in dollars. Then the global GDP use to anchor currency reserves and others, specifically those kind of funds. The anchor currency of 70% of the market is in dollars. So they have very dominant power. That's what she's trying to say. So according to, I'm just trying to have only glimpse of it. I'm not going to explain everything. According to this, 10% depreciation of the dollar raised the import price of under normal circumstances, the Mandela and Fleming. We feel, even now we feel so. We feel that 10% depreciation of Sri Lankan rupee, or depreciation of dollars, say US dollars, 10% depreciation of US dollar. When you look at US economy, we feel that import prices of the US dollar, since it is depreciated, they need to spend 10% more. But unfortunate thing is, when we look at the reality, Not so. Because that is the dominant currency, and it is mathematically proved that their inflation is not going to pick up, even though their currency is going to depreciate so much. It is denominated in US dollars, and what she says is, according to DCP, that is dominant currency paradigm, a 10% depreciation of the dollar raises import prices in the US by close to 0%, nothing. So there are a lot of other things. In the interest of time, I don't think that I will have the time to explain everything. I might skip some of these. But the interesting thing is this particular issue. Since the dominance of this dollar, which I just very clearly showed here, there are so many other channeling issues coming through. And the currency itself has huge issue. Now, say for example, now if you have this what she's trying to tell here, since it's in a very simple language, I just cut and pasted here, but I just try to explain to you what she's trying to tell here. What she's trying to say here is, like, say for example, we do the business with China, say for example, with yuan. Now, the yuan can depreciate against Sri Lankan rupee. Then what we feel is that then we will have certain impact when we do business with China in yuan. Unfortunately, it's not the case, because most of these were kind of invoiced and paid in US dollar terms. Even if you have bilateral currency depreciation, the impact is not prominent. Nobody is going to have that much of impact. I think she's just mentioned somewhere here, 10% depreciation relative to its trading partner's currency raises the import prices by only 1.6%. Meaning, say for example, if currency got depreciated, our LKR got depreciated against yuan by 10%, but still the inflationary impact, I mean, when you import, price impact is going to be only 1.6%. But unfortunate thing is, if the dollar got appreciated or depreciated, our currency against dollar, that impact is going to be much severe than this. Then inflation stabilization. I've just maybe glanced through some of these concepts. But she says this is a good rule of thumb for countries' inflation sensitivity to exchange rate fluctuations. There again, what she's trying to say here is, for the US with 93% of imports invoiced in dollars, the consequences, like for example, currency appreciation, depreciation, because they are US, when you go to US, they are local currency also dollar, and then there again, the at least depreciation or appreciation does not have serious impact. But when you go to India, 97% of imports invoiced in foreign currency, mainly in dollars, they will have serious issue when it comes to inflation, because inflation is spilling down to other markets through US dollar depreciation. If the local currency is depreciated against the US dollar, that will have serious impact, because there again, export competitiveness, which he talks about it here as well. Then the issue is going to be, even when it comes to the cost of exports, even because we have huge amount of things, input, which are coming from US dollar. When the dollar, the Sri Lankan rupee depreciates against dollar, then we'll have huge inflation impact. Not only us, entire world, specifically the small open economies. We have serious issues. Then other one is going to be export competitiveness. We feel now we can do so many exports when the currency gets depreciates. Even our ministers used to say the same. What she says here is, not only she, the dominant currency paradigm, the people who describe this proposition, they are again keep in mind, they have been doing research Specifically, Geeta is attached to Harvard now. Earlier, she was at Princeton or other way around. Now she's with IMF as chief economist. They have at least about another 100 of people who does research mathematically using empirical data for so many years. Then only they came up with this particular the understanding of dominant currency. You would have heard of it, but I think maybe it's quite novel. That's why I thought of the importance of to stress the importance of it. The other issue is the export. Now we say the export is we are going to get so many money with the export. Now when you empirically test it, unfortunately, due to so many other issues, exports are not going to improve. Currency, the US dollar, when our local currency is depreciated against US dollar, we feel we'll get a lot of money. That also doesn't matter. Because anyway, these are denominated in US dollars. Then the foreign person who's going to buy, anyway, that man is going to pay the same amount of US dollars. There he's not going to pay in rupees. So demand is like they cannot be seeing any change in the prices. If at all, if there's change, that also is eaten up by intermediaries here and there. So that is one issue. Now the monetary policy. When we look at our monetary policy, what she says is there are asymmetries in the monetary policy spillovers, meaning very briefly, US is having huge, they can print any amount of money and they can pass the inflation into entire world, but they will be secured. Something very, very simply, that's what she's trying to say. Then the exchange rate policy also, interestingly, we talk about what? We talk about open. You need to open entire thing. Why we are doing manipulations? We are doing manipulations and we are trying to protect our currency. We need to have entire the exchange rates open policy. This is before she became IMF economist. This is the IMF economist who she's saying here there is good argument for developing countries to manage float as opposed to freely floating exchange rate. This is not me, this is IMF chief economist who say. So I think the circumstances have changed quite a lot. Maybe this kind of new research which came into picture for last maybe 5-6 years. That's why I thought, rather than just talking about it, to give you some idea about two things. One thing is what we call as the open economy, small open economy. Other one is this dominant currency dollar paradigm. Now, she goes on to say, dollarization of internal finance. I'm just taking only a few more minutes of yours. There you can see international debt. That is not only there, as I just mentioned in one of the Dagi's the snapshot there. What she says is international debt. 60% of the international debt denominated in US dollars. International loans, another 57.7% of international loans are denominated in US dollars. Then foreign exchange turnover, 45% of turnover. Global payment currency, 43% is in US dollars. Foreign exchange reserves, 64%. So they are dominant. Now the issue here, what she says finally is that the rising share of emerging economies world in the GDP. This is emerging markets. You can see from 1990, maybe less, a bit more than 35%. That is the world GDP from 1990, emerging markets, this includes China. So that's why it has gone up to that level. But however, it has gone up to say 65% now in 2020. Look at the advanced economies from 65 they were in 1990, they have come down to 35%. Now, the disparity here, the emerging markets are coming up with all the due respect with all the market shares. But they are hampered with what? Dominant currency. They can't get the better advantage. They are so depressed with their opportunities because of this dominant currency. Mind you, she was a Harvard professor that time when I listened to her. The second time in Philadelphia, maybe about 3 years back, she was radical enough to talk openly. And if, say, for example, like one of our economists, even in the university, go up and openly talk about maybe Sri Lankan rupee, it's going to be a serious issue for us. I think this sometimes, to my knowledge, there were 5 professors. Ladies were given opportunity for them to open up, even though that matter, what she's going to discuss, is not the opinion of Harvard. There were only 5 in the entire history of Harvard. One was herself. They allow her to express her views, even though those views are completely different to Harvard. So quite interesting. Now, what she finally, about the implications, of course, for US losing its dominant currency status is dramatic. However, given the entrenched use of the dollar in both international trade and finance, the strength of the US monetary system, displacing the dollar will be very difficult in the long run. Now, just I've taken it from somewhere else. Here you can see, now here the daily trade, April 2019, daily trade buy your sell currencies, meaning you have import and export both the sides. Then when you have both the sides there, you need to look at the percentage will be 200% because import and export both the currencies. Now, even in 2019 April, maybe 44% of the world trade is still in dollars. Euros, maybe 16%. Japanese yen, maybe 8%. Pound, sterling pound, maybe another 6%. It goes down like that. Still, they are dominant. I'm not going to touch in the interest of time. This also talks about that. And then these slides I've taken from so many what you call working papers, specifically revolve around Emma Bowles, Camila Casa, and the most of the working papers are also there. So you can read if you're really interested. I think this the Federico Diaz is also another very, very prominent one who contributed to this particular discussion. I'm skipping all that. I don't think that emerging markets and developing markets situation also I don't have time to discuss. This is I've taken from June, the last month, World Bank report on the global economic prospects. The relevant slides only I've taken, but it's quite big, so I don't think that I have time to discuss it. But finally, in the interest of time, I move into Sri Lankan economy. There again, there are a lot of things, but I will just glimpse on. I will take maybe another, maybe maximum 10 minutes in the interest of time. Our issue is this. Our issue when you look at the Sri Lankan economy, forget about interest rate, forget about exchange rate, and forget about trade or anything else. Our issue is this. Our issue. Now, when we look at the Fitch Standard & Poor's Moody's, we were B plus or B1 when we were B plus or B1s way back, not that much way back, 2017. This is sovereign rating. From B1, we have come down to triple C. 1, 2, 3, 4 downgrades, 4 to 5 downgrades. That's our issue. It's a serious issue for us. I'm not going to say that their downgrade is correct or wrong. Normally, when we speak to international markets, we never say that they are correct because otherwise we are doing injustice to our own country. So we are trying our level best to protect, but there are issues. Then now, when we look at it, when we downgraded, it is important for us to keep some amount of momentum as far as GDP growth is concerned. But you know, we have serious issues when it comes to 2019 also, growth levels when the India was growing at maybe 6, 7, 8%, we were growing at only 1, 2, 3%, unfortunately. During the what you call COVID-19 also we had certain issues. But the last year, 2020, quarter 3 and quarter 4, we had 1.3% growth. And 2021 first quarter, even though this is I've just picked up from the central bank report, central bank presentation, most recent one, but even that time they haven't really census and statistics a couple of days before came up and saying that quarter 1 2021 growth is 4.3%. Now, when you look at our interest rates, we know that our interest rates are coming down. Everybody knows that. We have just taken maybe from 9% central bank policy rates. From 2017, 90%, it has come down to 9%, has come down to 6.5%. And the T-bill rates from 10%, it went up to even 12%. Now it has come down to 5%. So interest rates, hello. Now the issue is, I just mentioned about this spillage and the US monetary policy, dominant currency paradigm, and those kind of issues will have significant impact to the local economies, even if you try your level best to get away. Now, I've taken it from 10th June report, that is from Moody's. What Moody's observe is that Germany is euro money, US, UK, Canada, Japan, and Australia, all the economies, what they have seen. Long-term bond yields had been declining for decades, but 21, you can see from here, then it started picking up. All the economy, like Germany, US, UK, Canada, Japan, and Australia, these long-term interest rates, meaning long-term bond yields, 10 years. Now, then they expect, this is also the same report, they expect US long-term yields to continue to be rising gradually. That's their prediction. So, their interest rates will have serious impact on the other economies, including us. We might not be able to keep the interest rates low while all other markets are having big interest rates. But at the moment, that's not the case, but it can be. Then this is about long-term rates. I'm not going to touch, but you can see here US Treasury the yields. You can see that those were rising. Then Euro benchmark bond yields, that also you can see how those are rising. Japanese, they were having negative interest rates and those huge amount of issues they have, but still in the recent past, you can see when it comes to maybe 10-year yields, you can see it's picking up, not only in one market, everywhere. Now, emerging market QB programs, meaning quantitative easing, printing money, are generally smaller than those of the developed markets. Now, we talk a lot about printing money. Yeah, we print money a lot, but look at the United Kingdom, the amount of money that they printed. 12% of their GDP. This is the October 2020, the 7th June report, another report from Moody's. The United States, look at it, they also printed huge amount of money. Then Japan, they are again huge amount of money. Philippines, okay, keep aside the Philippines, but look at the money that were printed by United Kingdom, United States, and Japan. When you look at these, not only dollar, but the sterling as well as Japanese currency are dominant currencies. They can print whatever. This monetary, the MMT, what they call as modern monetary policy, where you can print anything and there will be no inflation, is relevant only for the dominant currencies, not for Sri Lankan rupees. So the major contributory factor for year-on-year increase in the trade deficit, for we have serious issue. You can see we have more than 500 million. I can't remember, I think in the recent past couple of days back, our president secretary came up and said that we need to think of what we call rationing the petrol or the fuel. Why? We are spending $487 million US for it. Even the textiles and others, we import and export both. So we have those kind of issues now. Now the trade deficit, you can see 2021 compared to 2020, we were okay for a while. Now trade deficit started escalating. You can see it here. Then the export performance, we picked up a bit, but not up to kind of expected level. Unfortunate thing is import performance, even though it came down like this, when it comes to June, even though these are July 14, we couldn't capture, but in the recent last month, there were certain increases. Then when we look at other parameters, tourism and worker remittances, when we look at worker remittances, we were quite okay, fortunately. January to May compared to last year, but we don't have any tourism income. Now, gross official reserves, you know how it has come down. Now it is $4 billion only. And then we have movement in Sri Lankan rupee against the US dollar. You can see there are a lot of fluctuations. To a certain extent, we are holding up, but the fluctuations are there, exchanges deteriorating. You can see the movement in the Sri Lankan rupee against selected currencies. This is year on year. 2019, there is some amount of appreciation, but 2020, 2021, up to now, we have the dollar has depreciated by 6.7%, but you look at the euro depreciated by 11.2% during 2020. Now it is 2.6 this year. Sterling also 6.2% and 7.9%. And then Australian dollar 11% depreciation, 3% depreciation. Now the important thing here is dollar to a certain extent lost their momentum in the marketplace. Dollar got depreciated against euro as well. That's my thinking. Now, maybe I'm not going to touch maybe most of the things here, but maybe one or two slides I might have to touch. One is this one, the government debt. This is one of the 2nd July Fitch report. What they have given here is general government debt. That is emerging markets meaning BCD, D meaning defaulted as well. So meaning normally we have A plus the B, C, D kind of rating benchmarks. Now we are at CCC, almost close to D. Now this benchmark is BCD. General government debt, the most recent, maybe 2020, is 80% in other countries, ours is 100%. Then general government the government balance as a percentage of GDP, there again you can see others are like kind of higher than us, but we are very much negative here. Then international liquidity ratio, you can see we are far down here. Then GDP per capita income, we are quite very much good there, except for the Maldives, they are better. Now, the general government debt to GDP, we mentioned earlier also, hit 100%. Interest revenue ratio comparison, what amount of GDP that you will have to pay the government revenue, government tax revenue and all other revenues, what portion of that you need to pay for the interest to get ours? Almost 100%. Earlier it was 50-50. Now it has gone up to the level of when you have government revenue, about 60-70-80% of that you need to pay only for the interest payment. So that's serious. So they are comparing it with other countries, Laos, Gabon, Angola. You can see there's CC median is like this. CC median is our rating. Our rated, similarly rated countries are paying only this much. We are paying this much. So this is a serious issue. Those are the issues that we have. Then overseas worker remittances, we talk about it. and the exchange rate also we talk about, results also we talk about it. And then we are going to look at public finance over the pandemic. We can see we have something like here, the change in the fiscal deficit. Then we have Sri Lanka here, there again, that is GDP, we're comparing with others. This is other issue. Just want to stress this one as well. Foreign currency debt service. We need to pay, this is interest. And then when we look at it, interest plus principals, we need to pay $6.5 billion during 2021 dollars. Then another almost 6.75 billion next year, another 5 billion 23, another almost 5 billion 2024, another 5.2 billion in 2025, another 4 billion 2026. Now the issue is going to be like when the things are not fluid, and people used to come and it's possible for us to borrow. In the interest of time, I maybe skip some of these, but look at what Barclays said. Barclays came with very dramatic report some time back, when just before the downgrade or just after the downgrade to CCC. But what they say here is now this is 1st July, Sri Lanka making ends meet. But they say the funding lines obtained in recent months have reduced the risk of an imminent debt adjustment by 2023. And then they went on to say, however, our medium-term concerns about the sovereign remain given challenging. But what they say is the tourism and others, if they come up to support, then that is fine. In the same report, they talk about so many channels, so many the facilities the government has got recently. Supplying with China, they talk about it. The same Barclays report. China Development Bank loan, concession loan from the Korea, supplying with Bangladesh, supplying with India, IMF's SDR, the significant amount. Then they talk about Bank of Ceylon and other government banks getting into certain other mechanisms of relieving us. Then the Fitch. This is 4th July. Fitch says support measures ease pressure on Sri Lankan banks' credit profiles. And then they talk about Sri Lankan economy as well. The issue of exchange to a certain extent has been eased off. Now, our issue is here, goods export will provide, we talk about exports, it's going to be important. Goods export will provide varying level of support. And then I've taken it from one of the movies there again. You can see Vietnam, 85%. They were like us about maybe 20 years ago. Now they have come up to the level of, since the markets were open in a meaningful manner, they export up to the level of 85% of their GDP. Our issue is we are as I just mentioned, 10 to 15%. So that's why these are important. Even for us to have some momentum, even for us to have some kind of exchange rate resilience, then we need to have investments coming in, and our trade is going to get propelled since we are a small economy. And unless otherwise we look at those issues, and there again, if we really feel that the monetary policy, even if we print, there can be a lot of repercussions when we go and print more than enough. Yeah, there are issues, but we cannot get away from some of the issues since we are a small open economy and our entire thing is denominated and dominated by US dollar. And maybe my personal feeling is that what we need to look at is maybe there are one or two, this I've taken from 25th June, one of the HSBC reports. They talk about Sri Lanka. They say vaccination timelines to reach herd immunity. What they say here is we need to wait until 2022, next year, April or May. Here they say projected time for herd immunity, that is 75% of the population. They talk about Sri Lanka. Here they talk about, there again, August 2022. So some of the things were changed in the recent past because they have gone into aggressive level of vaccination. And I think for us to get away from all these kind of issues, even though I'm not going to give you a prediction what will be the exchange rate and all this kind of stuff, what is important for us is to see how we are going to get away from the pandemic. And for us to get out of it, it is important for us to do the vaccination as fast as possible. Now, the average non-residential mobility, this is Google. In the recent past, they have been looking at it last 1 or 2 years. This has become one of the very good parameters to see how the economy is working, whether the economy is moving the way that it has to be, or whether the economy is very, very stagnant. And specifically, when we look at it, what you can see here, our mobility has gone down quite drastically compared to other markets. This is Malaysia, Taiwan, Vietnam, Indonesia, India. Our mobility is very, very, that was maybe by 25th June. When the mobility is so low, what will happen? Your economy is not really working. This is nobody's statistics. This is Google statistics. That's why these are independent. Now, so then the other one is, okay, I think I will stop at that point. So for us to get out of it, we need to really see how the mobility is going to improve. How the mobility is going to get improved, then you need to have herd immunity and you need to have the vaccination in place. So we hope for the best. We normally see maybe some light end of the tunnel. So we feel that this vaccination will have some kind of momentum and will start safely working as usual. So with that, I'll stop my deliberation. And of course, yes, some of the things which I just only touch rather than maybe in the sense of the time, and I'm just trying to kind of, as much as possible, put it into a very simple perspective. Maybe but just trying to kind of give you those two concepts, why we need to look at certain other parameters, not only just we look at internally, and to say that our money printing, this and that and others, and trying to kind of hit each other on certain dogmatic thinking. But those also are relevant. But in addition to that, it is important for us to see what people talk about and what people they come out with, what kind of arguments which are going through. That's why you need to be a member of American Economic Association, Royal Economic Society, International Economics, the Association, World Economic Association. There are so many. And you can find so many good research as well. But unfortunately, things, the most of the things are so mathematical, but still, it is important for us to have that kind of understanding, engage with these people, listen to these people, and then there are, again, as if possible, maybe contribute to those deliberations. So it's very briefly stop at that point. Sorry. If I have just run it through maybe with unconventional manner rather than just trying to teach you or trying to talk about only the Sri Lankan issues. Since we cannot really talk about only the Sri Lankan issues, we need to talk about other things. Okay, I've just stopped at that point. Sorry, you said can't hear you, sir. There is huge sound around you. Sorry
yes,
about
sir.
it.
So, yeah, thank you so much, sir. So in the interest of time, we have received some questions. So
Yeah,
I would like
sure.
to direct those questions to you. So the first question is, will stock market will bull or bear in future? What are your predictions?
It's a quite different thing. Like, for example, when we look at the valuations, the book to market, even the earning multiples, we are really lagging behind. And there's a lot of prospects for us to propel better. But the issue is going to be the growth momentum of the country. And if the GDP growth of the country is going to propel more than 4, 5, 6% consistently for 1 or 2 years, then there will be a lot of people who left the markets. So, for example, when I normally speak to about 200 foreign investors per year. Sometimes they put 20 people together, sometimes one by one, also going out of the country most of the time. Markets like UK, USA, Singapore, Hong Kong, Malaysia. So now the issue is, now in the recent past I couldn't go and there is no interest also. There are a lot of people left the markets. There are issues. Now the market cap as a percentage of GDP may be running into maybe 20%. Now I don't know, maybe much less than that. Market cap as a percentage of GDP, when we look at India, is about maybe 60, 70, 80%. So we are looking at the market which is small. And for us, there again, when we look at this kind of market, it's essential for us to have not only the local people, but the foreign funds coming and staying here. Even when we look at the commercial bank of Ceylon, we had about 35% of our market cap owned by funds. Even now we have it to a certain extent, but there's a reduction. Now, the important thing is here, how we are going to keep our currency, even for the stock market, because the stock market is also driven by the foreign investors coming. Otherwise, it's going to be bull run or bear run or whatever the run. But that run is going to be one day run, other day the not run, and get away from the run. The people need to look at the medium-term kind of investment. Funds are the people who normally used to look at it rather than the manipulating the situation. For us to that stability, we need to have consistent growth in the economy and stabilized the dollar rate also. So it will take time for us to get into that. But there is, I think, when you look at the valuations have overreacted. So because of that, temporarily there is a chance for us to, in the short run, to improve. But in the medium and the long run to improve, we need to have those stability and the currency stability, because foreigners used to invest in dollars, and then they need to convert the dollars into rupees, and then thereafter they need to take back the money with some kind of the appreciation with dividends and the increase in the market value. Okay, I can move into another question, I think.
So, with low tourism cash flow to the country and increase of foreign currency borrowings by the government, what kind of effects would you expect in the banking sector in medium and long term?
The banking sector, what they want to know? Sorry.
Yes, sir. So what kind of effects would you expect in the banking sector in medium and long term?
Okay. Very, very interesting question. Now, the issue is, I think there are certain reports also which came out where they say if the sovereign bond is going to take a haircut of 37% or 35%, then some of the banks will have serious issues. Now, here the interesting the phenomena is, now I think you would have heard that a couple of banks, at least about 3 banks, there is one bank who did a private placement with another DCF, Norges Bank. Norges Bank, the Norges Fund is one of the biggest funds, Norwegian fund. Even we have about 5% of our bank also owned by them. And they did a private placement with NDB. That was 1 or 2 months before. And then there is one announcement, another DCF, Development Finance Corporation, one similar to IMF, the IFC, similar to IFC, which is attached to what you call as IMF. They have almost 15, near 15% of our shares as well. So the one in US gave funding to a local bank. Now, even though there are a lot of the speculation in the marketplace, the funding lines from different markets, US markets, European markets, because the CDC is one of the fund which is owned by the UK government. They are willing to lend. And there's another one, DCF, which is US. They have already lent to 1 or 2 banks. Then there's another one called Tobacco. Then there are at least funds like that running to about 10. We just discussed about it recently, to tell you the truth, maybe 2 days back, myself and our treasurer, we just discussed. He said, Budi, I think these people are jumping at us because they wanted to relieve us from completely getting to Chinese. Maybe so, maybe not. But now what I'm trying to say here is, okay, we are not getting funds, 30 billion funds. No, we never got that kind of funds. But we get 100 million, 150 million, 50 million, 25 million running into medium, short term and long term. There are certain funds. There are 2 funds. One is Alpha and one is Blend. Both are, one is European and US. Alpha. Other one is Blend is the Middle Eastern funds. There are Middle Eastern funds also interested in. Some of these information I cannot divulge because some of these are very confidential at the moment. And not only our bank, I know some of the details of other banks as well. So they have a lot of funding lines coming through also. So yes, there is an issue. But I think we should be able to get away with this issue since there is very, very recent interest which is coming through. And then the way for us to get away from that is going to be in the short term and the medium term. We need to have confidence in the minds of the investors, and we need to show some amount of economic growth as well and the stability. So in short, what I feel is that banking sector should be able to get through these particular issues.
Okay, sir. Next question is, if we assume our economy in our current account already have a deficit, if our current account already have a deficit, for overcome from this problem, instead of depreciation our currency, what are the solutions that we can take?
I think one of the things that we need to do is specifically we need to have medium and a long-term plan. Now we talk about certain swaps. Those swaps are maybe 1 or 2 years, 1 year sometimes. We talk about short-term solutions, but important thing is that we need to have a pipeline, we need to have an idea, and we need to come up with a story where people are going to believe that this 25 or 29 billion that we need to pay over a period of 5 years, how we are going to pay. So the most important thing is that. Now, some of the research reports I did not discuss. I discussed with some of the people, some of the students who invited me at the Japura University, I think. A couple of months back. I discussed with them most of the very recent research about the speculation aspect of the foreign exchange. I can remember one of the UCL professor, in fact, she's quite young professor. Tanya, she statistically mentioned the fact that exchange rate in the world is determined by so many dealers sitting in different, not the banks, but the banks as well. But there are the speculators who are sitting as dealers in so many places in investment banking as well. She proved, but interestingly, the exchange rate is very much determined in the short run by those guys. And when, quite interestingly, she said, I think that happened, I think that was American Economic Association last sessions. That was last December and 1st and 2nd January. She said that when you go and ask them why this disparity, why you went ahead with this kind of rate, what are the economic fundamentals? They themselves say there's no fundamental. This is the kind of thing in the marketplace. We can see that kind of thing happening in local markets, but even throughout the world. So now the important thing is, okay, there can be a lot of speculation, but you need to have some kind of a very strong economic story. It is not only that going to IMF or what we are going to, how we are going to get the money to pay after another 2-3 years. Not only that, we need to have some kind of a very sound economic story, which people are going to believe. Then that is the solution. Not that we just do something or even there you can see even your deterioration or your the currency the fluctuations sometimes may not give the real solution to you because we are in a different world. So what I am trying to say here is to all these kind of questions, what we need to have is good economic story, what we are going to do and how we are going to improve the economy, what kind of direction that we take over a period of today to another 4 to 5 years time. And that should be solid, that should be with plans in place, that should be transparent, that should be workable, that should be, we should be able to get the confidence of the investors. If you have that story, that's going to be the solution rather than anything else.
Okay, sir. So I think we could cover a lot of area regarding the topic that we focused today: foreign trade, exchange rates, and Sri Lankan economy. So we could cover a lot of things under this topic from the chapter 3 of Upsurge webinar series. So I would like to make this an opportunity to thank Mr. Nandika Buddhipala, the Chief Financial Officer of Commercial Bank of Ceylon PLC, for sharing these important insights and for being a part of Upsurge Chapter 3. And also, I would like to thank all of you who joined with us today to share this knowledgeable experience. So we are planning to meet you soon with another informative session of Upsurge webinar series, which will be beneficial for all of us. So till then, stay safe and take care. Thank you so much.
Thank you.